Hello again, my DIY loving friends, and welcome to Medicated Housewife DIY, where crafting and mental health come together. In today's DIY video, we're making the ultimate Dollar Tree DIY Christmas gift, transforming tumbling tower blocks into high-end Christmas decor on a budget. Watch the holiday magic unfold and give someone you care about the best Christmas gift ever using mostly Dollar Tree supplies. You don't want to miss this, so what are you waiting for? Let's go DIY together. For this DIY, I'm using tumbling tower blocks from Dollar Tree to make all three versions of today's DIY. I used a total of 126 blocks to make all three DIYs, and that's 42 blocks for each individual tree. The first thing I did was to make this cardboard cutting template. The template is the same width as the width of the blocks, which is 18 millimeters, and that's from the centimeter side of my ruler. I'm sorry, you guys, I'm so old, we didn't learn the metric system when I was in school. I believe it's 18 millimeters width across, so I decide to also measure 18 millimeters down from the top. And I used a ruler to draw the angles from the top down 18 millimeters to create a pointed top. And this template should ensure that all my blocks will be cut mostly the same. I am hoping that that makes sense to you. I use a pencil and my template to trace those cutting lines to make the point onto my blocks. I'm actually going to be cutting 21 blocks for each of these trees, so that's 63 blocks for all three trees together that I will be marking and then cutting this way. So I've marked all 63 blocks for all three of my projects, and I grabbed this miter shears that I got on Amazon, and I will link it for you in the description box below. The angles I'm cutting are not actually marked on this miter shears, so I am going to line up my pencil marks on both sides of each block and basically cut the angles by hand, as you can see me doing here. You could also do this with a miter box as well if that's what you have. Once all 63 blocks are cut, and again, it is 63 cut blocks for all three projects. If you're only making one tree, you only need to cut 21 blocks. I take the cut blocks on their sides and I use a pencil to mark where I need to put 2 holes on each of the blocks. One hole in the middle of that angle cut and another in the middle right beneath the end of that cut. As you can see me doing right here, I didn't measure them. I'm just eyeballing it, and I use the first block that I marked as a template to mark all the rest of the blocks the exact same way. Now, because I have an irrational fear of power tools, I got this cute little USB mini drill on Amazon, and I'll link it for you below. I'm using this to drill through each of those marked blocks on the 2 pencil marks that we made on them, and we need 2 holes in each block so that we can string them together like they were beads or something like that. And if you don't have an irrational fear of power tools like me, use a regular drill with the tiniest bit available to make these holes, because this drill does work, but it can get a little testy, as you can see me fighting a little bit with it here. It's not perfect, but it does get the job done. Now all my blocks are cut and drilled through. I am going to grab an equal number of uncut blocks, and all we're going to do is glue a cut block to a regular block end to end for each of my cut blocks. And for those of you keeping track at home, we are using 120 blocks for 3 trees, and that's 63 cut and drilled, 63 uncut, and for one tree we have 42 blocks total, 21 cut and drilled and 21 uncut. I'm using super glue wood glue from Dollar Tree to glue the 2 block sets together end to end. I wanted to give the 2 block sets a more finished look, so I'm using this Elmer's Pro Bond wood filler from Amazon, I'll link it below, to fill in all the seams between the 2 blocks. And I like the tip on this wood filler for this purpose, but the filler did seem to clog up that tip a lot, so it is not a perfect situation, just to be honest with you guys. When the wood filler dried, I did go over all of those seams with a sanding block to make them smooth. I got this 3-pack of jumbo wood dowels at Hobby Lobby, but I'll find something like that to link below. They were a little too long for my purposes, so Mr. Medicated was kind enough to cut the 3 dowels down to 8 inches long for me. I got a couple of these wood plaques, the round wood plaques that are just like the ones at Dollar Tree, and you know what I'm going to say, not my Dollar Tree, so I will link these for you below, but maybe you can find these at your Dollar Tree. Also got these wood caps on Amazon. I'll link them for you below. They happen to fit perfectly on top of these jumbo dowels, so that was a win. So for this first tree, I am taking 21 of my 2-block sets, and I'm using Folk Art Antique Wax, which I will link for you below, to paint all 21 of the 2-block sets. I'm painting all the sides and the edges. I want a nice deep brown color on these. I use a dry paper towel to rub off any of the excess wax. I am also painting that 8-inch jumbo wood dowel with that same antique wax, also giving it a nice deep brown color to match my 2-block sets. We use the same antique wax to paint that wooden cap as well. And you guessed it, the round wood plaque also gets painted with the antique wax. I want to attach the wood dowel standing up in the middle of the wood plaque, and I want it to be strong, so I'm using E6000 adhesive, which I will link for you below. I'm also letting the adhesive dry overnight. I have this elastic string in my stash called Stretch Magic, and they sell it on Amazon. I'll link it for you below. I used to use this stuff for beading bracelets and stuff like that. It is stretchy and it's pretty strong. I'm using the black elastic for this DIY, and I'm cutting 2 pieces of elastic to string through the 2 holes we drilled earlier on a group of 7 of my 2-block sets. So just like beads, I start with the first hole on each block and string a piece of elastic through, and then we're going to tie it in a tight knot. Then I take another piece of the elastic and I string that piece through the second hole on each of those 7 2-block sets, and I'm going to tie that string into a tight knot also. I'm using a drop of Gorilla Glue super glue directly on the knot to secure it, and I'm going to put a drop of the glue on all of my knots before I trim away the excess elastic string. And that's the first of 3 layers of our tree that we are making. We're going to repeat the stringing with elastic on 2 more groups of 7 2-block sets. We're doing these 2 more groups of 7 the exact same way. We're going to be stringing the first hole on the 7 sets, tying it into a tight knot, and then we're stringing the second hole and we're going to tie that into a tight knot, gluing both knots and trimming the excess string so that we'll be left with 3 of these finished layers of our tree. I realized at this point that I needed to attach something to the wood dowel, which is the trunk of our tree, to keep our Jenga block layers from sliding down to the bottom. I had these small wood half rounds in my stash, and I'll link them for you below. I painted them with antique wax so they match the dowel, and I'm using hot glue to attach 4 of them about halfway down my dowel as a stopper so that you can keep all of your layers from sliding down. As you can see me doing right here, I'm spacing them out evenly around the tree trunk. Then I assemble the 3 layers of blocks onto the tree trunk to make sure that they fit nicely and that wood cap will fit nicely on top. And if you have not figured out the concept behind this Christmas tree yet, let me show it to you. When you remove the cap from the top, the layers slide off the tree trunk and they kind of snap out flat to make these perfect little coasters or trivets, and then they fold up again to slide back onto the tree trunk in 3 layers that very much resemble a wooden Christmas tree. Perfectly functional. I saw something like this made out of wood from out of the country for about $50. So of course my mind said, how can I make that out of tumbling tower blocks? And this tree was born. And this is my dark wood coaster Christmas tree made out of tumbling tower blocks, a perfect functional gift that folds back up when not in use into a gorgeous high-end piece of Christmas decor. Honestly, this project is my new favorite tumbling tower block DIY of all time. It's perfection. For this next coaster Christmas tree, I have my 21 2-block sets that have been cut and drilled. I wanted to make this tree green. I know, novel idea. So I mixed up some apple barrel Christmas green with some apple barrel English ivy, both of which I'll link for you below. I wanted my tree to be green, but not that bright green. So I used some English ivy to darken and mute it a bit. And I also added water to create more of a stain-like effect so that you can still see the wood grain. I painted all sides of my 21 sets of blocks on the edges, the top, the bottom, the front, the back, all sides. Then I grabbed my 8-inch wood dowel and I painted that with the green mixture as well. Although I'm not crazy about the green tree trunk, I ended up fixing it later. Then I painted the wood cap the same green mixture. I still felt my green was a bit too bright, so I used a small bit of English Ivy and a dry rough brush, and I distress painted a little bit more of that darker ivy color all over the 21 sets of blocks, giving them a little bit more of a distressed, rustic look. Then switching gears, I grabbed this Apple Barrel Matte White, which I will link for you below. Then I used a tiny bit on a dry brush to very lightly distress paint a dusting of snow just onto the ends of each of the 21 sets. And the end is the not cut end of the blocks, just to sort of mimic a faint snow effect. And I went in the opposite direction with the dowel and the cap. I hated them green, so using some antique wax, I distress painted both pieces with the wax until they resemble more of an authentic sort of a brownish tree tone. I had this wood slice from Dollar Tree, and I decided to use that as the base of my tree. So using some E6000, I glued the wood dowel to the middle of the tree slice, and then I let that dry overnight. Then, using that same stretch magic elastic as the previous DIY, I string the first set of 7 sets of blocks together through both of those drilled holes in each of the blocks, and I tie both strings into tight little knots before using a dab of super glue on the knot to secure it, and then trimming the excess string off. I string the second and the third layer of my tree the exact same way, the same 7 sets of blocks all together with the knots, and then with the super glue, and then with the trimming, the same exact thing 3 times. And on my tree trunk, I had already painted 4 half rounds the same color as the wood dowel, and I used some hot glue to attach them to the tree trunk to keep those coasters from sliding down to the bottom. And here I am, just seeing how well my coasters fit onto the tree trunk and that everything goes where it's supposed to. And just a refresher as to how this thing works, the cap comes off the top, the coasters slide up and off the tree trunk, snap down flat on the table for use, and then fold up and slide back onto the tree trunk for decorative storage. And oh, this green coaster Christmas tree makes me so happy I could just explode. You guys know how you rarely see me use actual colors in my DIYs, but this one has most definitely won my heart, and I hope it's won yours too. Form, function, and beauty, a winner in my book. For this next coaster Christmas tree, we're starting with those 21 2-block sets that have been cut and drilled already. And this time I'm using some very strong and very cheap instant coffee to stain the blocks and to enhance and deepen the natural wood tone. I paint it on just like a stain, and it dries pretty quickly. Then I use that same instant coffee to stain that 8-inch dowel that we cut. And we're going to use that as our tree trunk, as well as to stain that wood cap for the top of the dowel. And finally, to stain that wood round plaque that maybe you can find at your Dollar Tree. I certainly can't find it at mine. Or you can use the link that I'll leave below for a different but similar one. All my pieces are stained with that same instant coffee. I use E6000 adhesive to attach the wood dowel to the middle of the round wood plaque, and then I'm going to allow it to dry overnight. For this color tree, I didn't want to use a black elastic string, so I'm using some clear colored stretch magic, and I will link it for you below. And by this time, I think you know the drill. We are using the elastic to string through the 2 holes we drilled earlier into each of our blocks. We are making 3 sets of 7 of the 2-block sets. We string the 7 together through both holes and tie a very tight knot, followed by a drop of super glue onto that knot. And once that super glue is dried, we trim the excess string. And we do the same thing for all 3 of our coasters, made exactly the same way. I also coffee stained 4 of those half rounds to hot glue to our tree trunk to keep our coasters in place when not in use, just like the previous trees that we made. Then I test out the coasters to make sure that everything fits. And one more quick test to make sure my coasters are functional and perfect. And this is my coffee stained wood coaster Christmas tree. And can I just say that I'm really hoping you guys are as excited about these 3 ultimate Christmas gift coaster trees as I am. I'm thrilled to find a tumbling tower block project that's so functional and also has such seasonal decor appeal. I feel like this tumbling tower block DIY is actually making me so excited to craft and to bring this to you guys, and I just really hope you all love it. And as usual, I want to know what you think. Let me know in the comments which one of these 3 versions of the ultimate Dollar Tree tumbling tower block Christmas gift was your favorite and why. I love hearing from all of you. And if you've enjoyed this DIY video, there's another one waiting for you. Just click that link on your screen for more Medicated Housewife DIYs. Also, I'd love for you to join our little crafting family and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and until next time, my name is Sarah. I'm the Medicated Housewife, and crafting is my medication.